What's up, guys? Today's daily post was about how to train with limitations. Our friend asked a question about how to continue to grow his upper body stronger with bench presses, overhead press, and whatnot, but he's got a shoulder problem that limits his range of motion. So I spoke in terms of how to improve his physical strength. In the article, if you want to read it, it's down below. But today in this video, I want to talk about embracing your limitations. So obviously our friend has a physical limitation, and those are unignorable, right? I mean, if someone pokes my eye out, I can't ignore the limitation. The fact that I don't have an eyeball there, it's very evident to me and my performance and to people around me. So we can't sort of sneak around them, but we've got these insidious little strange limitations that I'm going to call brick walls and shadows in our lives that tend to, well, get in our way like a brick wall, or keep us ignorant like a shadow or something that's in the dark. So in terms of limitations, I tend to look at them as teaching tools. So in the article that I referenced down below, I talked to my friend about how, although he's limited in his range of motion, he can continue to get stronger by working around it. Right? Well, the same thing goes with the limitations in our character, in our lifestyle, in our career, in our relationships, in our being. There are going to be brick walls and there are going to be shadows. And when dealing with those limitations, realizing that they're designed for our ascension, every single limitation that you have is designed to make you a bit stronger, either by teaching you how to move over, around, or through a brick wall, or shedding light, becoming enlightened about your shadows or things that you're quite frankly ignoring, or rather not look at, right? There are parts of us, there are things going on inside us, mentally, physiologically, that we quite frankly don't want to admit. Right? Some of us got weird little illnesses, and we're too afraid to go to the doctor to talk about. Sometimes we have a recurring problem, perhaps with the opposite sex. I'm 27 years old and I can't keep a normal relationship with a woman. Same thing with jobs and things like that. So we tend to kind of play them down, play them off, people would say. But there's no way to grow stronger when you play them off. So today, we're going to talk about going through, over, around brick walls with the principle of figure-it-outableness. You've got to figure shit out. These walls are set there for you, either physically, physiologically, energetically, in your life, because you've got to figure some shit out. A good friend of mine, Dave Rule, says that successful people figure shit out. Don't look at your limitation, or look at that roadblock, or look at that brick wall in front of you as something to be upset about, something to cry and whine about, something to fucking complain about like most people. Look at it as an opportunity, a chance to grow stronger. Some of the ways that we could potentially grow stronger given a limitation, right, would be someone who goes blind, right? Now, I have absolutely no reference for this. So anybody who's listening to this, who's blind, forgive me. But I would imagine that someone who is blind and cannot see harbors a limitation that forces you to grow stronger elsewhere, right? Like with your fingers. Someone who can't see reads with Braille. I see the Braille bumps on the wall when I'm at the, doctor's office or in an apartment building somewhere. You're supposed to touch it, it's supposed to tell you where you are, but fuck, I barely can even feel them. They're so tiny. And they're supposed to be symbolic of something. Like, I'm supposed to touch a couple fucking dots on the wall, and that shit is supposed to mean I'm on the 7th floor, right? So you've got to learn tactile abilities. You've got to create brand new motor pathways. I say motor, but brain pathways. I was talking about the body, so I say motor, but pathways in your brain, so that when you touch the bumps on the wall, you become enlightened, you become aware, right? You go from being in the shadows, darkness, to light. So you're forced to increase your tactile sensitivity. This is just one very obvious example. Of course, someone who's in a wheelchair. I can't run. Well, guess what? There are guys that play basketball in their fucking wheelchairs. They play all kinds of games rolling around like this, doing this. You know what happens? Their arms have to get stronger. Now, if they're whining and complaining because the accident took their legs, they'll remain trapped in the level of consciousness and with the level of lifestyle that they currently have. But if they're an aware person who is blessed with a limitation, they'll see that it's an opportunity to grow stronger elsewhere, and maybe that's the best thing for us. Right? Oftentimes the things that we don't get or the things that are taken away from us are for our own good. Who knows God's plan for your soul's progression? Right? So don't judge, just figure it out. The other thing has to do with shadows. Shadows are limitations that we're not willing to look at, and many times or not even aware of. They're completely unconscious. They're ways of being and attitudes that we adopt over time in order to defend ourselves from the environment, in order to protect ourselves in threatening circumstances, in order to hold ourselves high in an environment where perhaps we are told that we're low, right? I could admit, for example, that I have a lot of shadow magician issues because when I was younger, I was told I had ADD and learning disabilities. So I kind of grew up playing dummy. A lot of my years through middle school and high school, I played dummy until I realized I'm no dummy. But that was a shadow issue. I carried the shadow pain associated with being labeled that way through middle school and high school, and it wreaked havoc on my grades. It wreaked havoc on my relationships and my self-esteem. But I wasn't willing to look at it because it was something that was thrown at me, and I said, okay, fine. Cast into the shadows, I'll walk around like a fucking dummy. Till I grew up and realized that they're the dummies who said that because they didn't realize my fucking brilliance. Anyway, my point is that I had to look at that. I had to embrace that. I had to really wrestle with that through my adulthood in order to come to grips with the fact that shouldn't be something I carry around unconsciously. I should shed light on it, meaning put it into perspective and heal the shadows. Joseph Campbell has a beautiful way of describing the evolution that's associated and the nourishment that supports our evolution associated with eating your shadows. Shadows are parts of us that have been put down. Like if you are a hyperactive kid, right, and told shut up, sit down, you're annoying over and over again, you tend to suck it all in and cast your energy into the shadow, right? Because it's judged. And if you're going to live peacefully in this home, you better shut the fuck up. I'm saying fuck a lot today. So it gets cast into the shadow, but it could possibly be your greatest gift, right? Talking a lot, being energetic and outgoing could be something that irritates your parents and teachers, but might be something that causes your ascension to great heights and fame, if you're willing to look at the shadow and cast the light, the healing light upon it. You see? So the way we deal with this is, number one, by being honest with ourselves, really looking at our strengths and limitations, and looking at our limitations and asking if they really are limitations or gifts, and looking at our strengths and wondering perhaps how they might be stopping us from growing stronger. Oftentimes we personally identify, or the ego becomes fixed on a particular strength, and we think that it's ours, and we think it will never go away, and we think that we should be praised for it, when in reality it's just a passing thing, like all things in life. So your greatest strength could become a limitation and a shadow issue also. The next thing would be, in dealing with these types of issues, is to ask for help when you realize you need it. That means from mentors, that means from friends, that means from anyone who's got an objective point of view about you. So for example, I must have been about 10 years ago, I took a course, personal development course in California, and one of the activities we engaged in was confronting people with how we receive them, right? In other words, you walk up to someone and say, I receive you as arrogant and obnoxious, right? So for example, I was told by another young woman who was objectively leering at me, and she says, I receive you as arrogant. And I said, well, tell me more. And she was shocked, because arrogant people don't say, tell me more. But what it did, and one reason why she was shocked and impressed, was because no one's ever done that to her before. I call you arrogant, or I say I'm receiving you as arrogant, and you want to know more? That's because I'm asking for help. If I'm coming across as arrogant, if you're receiving me as arrogant, now, it might not be totally mine. It may be the way you're receiving me, and that's okay. But I want to know why. I want to know how. Can you point out some very specific things, activities, behaviors, circumstances we were in that perhaps I wasn't aware of, right? Sometimes most of the times we're acting unconsciously. And if I did something unconscious to you, please, I want to know. That way I can shed light on it with your help and work to heal it. The interesting thing about these types of issues, shadows as opposed to brick walls, is that they're put there and they represent and they support your soul's progression, your character, who you are, limitations in consciousness. So that's it, my friends. Continue to grow stronger, bust through, climb over, go around brick walls, and shed light on shadows. Done.